Hello and welcome. In the 1990s, a young American student relocated to South Africa and settled in a Port Elizabeth township. He befriended a local teacher and the two discovered they had a lot in common. They both hated seeing children having no choice in determining their destiny. So what they created was something that could propel the kids to heights beyond their imagination. (1994), days before South Africa's first democratic elections. A group of international students arrived from all over the world to observe a historic political transition. Among the scholars, 17-year-old Jacob Lief.
We met with everyone from your Robben Island freedom fighters through to your Eugene Terre Blanche and everyone in between to really understand the country.
After the hugely successful election, Jacob went back home with a glowing impression of our country. When an opportunity presented itself 3 years later, he didn't think twice about coming back. But this time, it wouldn't be pleasant. The job that Jacob was offered in Cape Town turned out to be a scam.
So I took off. I didn't know where I was going, and through a series of very strange events, I ended up in Port Elizabeth.
On a train to Port Elizabeth, Jacob met a stranger who offered to take him to a township pub.
And this one guy in the corner of the tavern goes like this to me, and I go over to him and I sit down with him and we start talking. His name was Banks Geaxula.
I didn't even know whether he was an American up until Boise Papu, you know, the guy that I know very well, introduced him to me. He said, "Banks, I'm tired of speaking English, man. Can you speak with this young American boy?"
In the early hours of the morning, when everyone was leaving the pub, it was clear Jacob was stranded. So he pleaded with his new friend, Banks, to stay at his place.
And I asked him, "For how long are you going to stay?" And then he said to me, 6 months. I said, 6 months? I wanted to turn the car, take him back to the tavern.
Still, Banks took him in. Jacob was choosing a third world township battling with poverty and crime over his native city of New York in the US. He spent the next 6 months in Zwide working as a tutor at a local school.
During those 6 months, I saw an unbelievable commitment and a belief from the students in the power of what an education could be. I was inspired.
From time to time, international organizations, donors and NGOs would come to Zwide to help the impoverished children. Jacob saw something that made him unhappy.
Everyone was coming into finding success the same way. They were saying, "We are going to try to distribute 1 million computers. We're going to give, 100,000 cups of soup away." All of these things. Now, that's a wonderful gestures, but if you've been abused, if you're living in a shack, a cup of soup isn't going to change your life.
With school teacher Banks strongly believing in education and Jacob falling in love with township life, the two came up with a plan to start their own organization.
Our aim was to invest in these children, just like we invest in our own children.
The two worked frantically to raise funds, with Jacob using his United Kingdom and American contacts to attract donors. When Ubuntu Education Fund started in 1999, it provided books, computers and other school supplies to children free of charge. But Jacob and Banks soon realized these were not improving life in Port Elizabeth's townships.
What I said to myself is, any intervention that we built, it would have to be good enough for my own son, for myself.
Hey, South Africa, come on, sing it loud and sing it proud and fantastic!
An aggressive fundraising strategy involving top musicians and long flights around the world to meet international donors saw the organization get the boost it needed. In 2005, the two unveiled their new building. Ubuntu Education Center was born, a 40 million rand facility right in the middle of Zwide.
I remember in one of the houses, one of the grannies said, "That is too much, my child. Why can't you provide us with bread and soup?" I said to Mommy, that is not going to sustain you. This center, even when Banks is no longer there, when Jake is no longer there, when all Ubuntu staff are no longer there, this will remain serving the communities of Zwide.
Today, the Ubuntu Education Fund takes care of all the expenses of hundreds of homes of orphaned children. It also has a state-of-the-art health care center providing routine checkups and HIV testing to destitute children and their parents. The fund's education department offers 3 key services: early childhood development, after-school tutors, and bursaries to learners who meet university requirements. Zethu Ngeza was a little girl when she was taken in by Ubuntu. Her parents died nearly a decade ago. The organization stabilized her child-headed home before sending her to the Nelson Mandela Metro University.
I want to complete my BTech level, KO. 2015-16, I'm hoping to start with my master's degree level and start my own business one day.
Since 1999, more than 2,000 Port Elizabeth children have now received life opportunities with Ubuntu Education Fund, taking them from cradle to career.
You will not see a better return than investing in a child and doing it in a proper way.
2,000 Eastern Cape children benefiting as a result of the actions of 2 people. It just shows that we can make things happen if we believe. Still to come, having made it big in the UK, the Zulu blonde is coming back home.
News that moves. enca.com.